Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the stars through the main view screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months through unexplored space near the edge of human territory. Everything seemed normal until the sensors started beeping with urgent warnings. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple contacts ahead," said Lieutenant Ryan Brooks from his position at the tactical station. "They're big, sir. Really big." Jake moved closer to look at the sensor readings. What he saw made his stomach tighten. 12 massive ships were arranged in a perfect formation, each one at least twice the size of Discovery. The alien vessels had strange organic curves and seemed to pulse with internal light. "Communications? Try to establish contact," Jake ordered. "Let them know we come in peace." Commander Lisa Harper worked quickly at her station. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, Captain. Standard peaceful greeting protocols." The response came faster than anyone expected. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of an alien bridge. A tall creature with 4 arms and silver skin stared at them with large black eyes. Behind it, Jake could see other alien beings of different shapes and sizes working at various stations. "I am Supreme Admiral Kethvar of the Hegemony Fleet," the creature said in perfect English. "You have entered sacred expansion space without permission. This is a violation of galactic law." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Morrison of the United Earthship Discovery. We didn't know this space was claimed. We're explorers from Earth, seeking peaceful contact with other species." "Admiral." Kethvar's expression grew cold. "Earth? Another primitive world seeking to join the galaxy. You will provide the coordinates to your home world immediately. Your species will submit to hegemony rule or face the consequences." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Jake replied firmly. "We don't submit to anyone. Perhaps we can discuss some kind of diplomatic arrangement." The alien admiral made a sound that might have been laughter. "Discuss? You primitive creatures do not understand your situation. The hegemony has ruled this sector for 3,000 years. We have conquered 12 species and absorbed them into our collective. No one has ever refused our demands." Lisa stepped up beside Jake. "Admiral, surely we can find a peaceful solution. Humanity values diplomacy and mutual respect between species." "Mutual respect?" Kethvar's voice grew louder. "You speak as equals when you are nothing but another world to be harvested. Your species will serve the hegemony or be eliminated. There is no third option." Jake felt his anger rising but kept to his voice steady. "Then I guess we have a problem because humanity doesn't kneel to anyone." The alien admiral's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Then you have just declared war on the galaxy's most dangerous species. Congratulations, primitive. You have sealed the fate of your entire world." The screen went dark. Immediately, alarms started blaring throughout Discovery as the alien ships began moving toward them. "Captain, they're powering up some kind of energy." "Weapons," Ryan called out. "I've never seen readings like this." "Shields up, evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Get us out of here." The first energy blast hit Discovery's port side, sending everyone stumbling. The lights flickered as the ship's systems struggled to cope with the alien weapon's power. Through the view screen, Jake watched as 2 escort frigates, the Chicago and the Denver, moved to protect Discovery's retreat. "Captain Morrison, this is Captain Burns on the Chicago," came a voice over the communications. "We'll hold them off. Get that information back to Earth." Jake watched in horror as brilliant blue energy beams struck both frigates. The ships tried to return fire with their plasma cannons, but the alien shields absorbed the attacks without any visible damage. Within minutes, both human ships exploded in silent flashes of light. "Jump drive now," Jake shouted. "Working on it, Captain," called out Engineer Pete Collins from his station. "The alien weapons did something to our systems. I need 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds felt like hours as more energy blasts struck Discovery. The ship shook violently and several consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Finally, the familiar hum of the jump drive filled the air and stars stretched into lines as Discovery escaped into hyperspace. In the relative safety of jump space, Jake collapsed into his captain's chair. Lisa moved to stand beside him, her face pale but determined. "What have we done?" she asked quietly. "We told the truth," Jake replied. "We won't bow down to bullies no matter how powerful they think they are." Ryan looked up from his damaged console. Captain, I managed to record some data on their weapons and ships before we jumped. There's something strange about their technology. It's incredibly advanced, but there are gaps. They seem to avoid certain frequencies and their ships move like they're trying to prevent direct impacts. What does that mean? Jake asked. I'm not sure yet, but maybe they're not as invincible as they want us to think. Lisa shook her head. Did you see the size of their fleet? And that was just a patrol group. The Admiral said they've conquered 12 species over 3,000 years. What chance do we have? The same chance any free people have when someone tries to enslave them, Jake said firmly. We fight. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Everyone understood what this meant. Humanity had just made an enemy of the most powerful force in known space. In 30 days, according to Admiral Keithavar's final transmission, the hegemony would arrive at Earth expecting unconditional surrender. Pete looked up from his engineering station. Captain, at maximum speed we can reach Earth in 2 weeks. That gives them time to prepare. Prepare for what? Lisa asked. We just saw what their weapons can do. Our entire fleet wouldn't last an hour against them. Maybe not in a straight fight, Jake said thoughtfully. But humans have never been good at straight fights. We're better at finding another way. As Discovery raced through hyperspace toward Earth, Jake stared at the swirling energy patterns outside the ship. Somewhere behind them, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was preparing to destroy his species. The smart thing would have been to surrender and hope for mercy, but Jake Morrison hadn't become a starship captain by taking the smart path. He'd gotten there by taking the right path, no matter how dangerous it might be. And the right path meant warning Earth that they were about to face their greatest challenge. The hegemony thought they had just conquered another primitive world. They were about to learn something about humans that no other species had ever taught them. When you threaten everything humans care about, they don't surrender. They get creative. The emergency meeting room in Earth's Defense Council headquarters buzzed with tense conversations as military leaders and scientists gathered around the large conference table. President Alex Carter sat at the head of the table, his face grim, as he listened to Captain Morrison's report through the video link from Discovery. So you're telling me that we have less than 2 weeks before the most powerful military force in the galaxy arrives at Earth expecting us to surrender, President Carter said slowly. That's correct, sir, Jake replied from the screen. They gave us 30 days total, and we've already used up half that time getting back to Earth. Admiral Keithavar was very clear about what happens to species that refuse to submit. General Patricia Stone leaned forward in her chair. Captain, in your opinion, do we have any chance at all in a conventional space battle? Jake shook his head. None whatsoever, General. Their weapons cut through our shields like they weren't even there. They destroyed 2 frigates in under 5 minutes without taking any damage themselves. Admiral Kevin Taylor, commander of Earth's Space Forces, rubbed his temples. Then we need to seriously consider surrender. I hate to say it, but facing extinction isn't worth maintaining our pride. The room erupted in angry voices until President Carter raised his hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, I want to hear from our science team. Dr. Rodriguez, what did you learn from the data Discovery collected? Dr. Sam Rodriguez stood up and activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of the alien ships appeared, rotating slowly as data scrolled alongside them. The technology is definitely more advanced than ours, he began. But there are some interesting patterns. Their ships seem to deliberately avoid certain movement patterns and energy frequencies. It's almost like they're following very specific rules about how they fight. What kind of rules? Asked Colonel Ben Hayes from his position near the back of the room. That's what we need to figure out, Rodriguez replied. But I have a theory. What if their advanced technology comes with limitations we don't understand? Yet, Dr. Helen Nash, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, stood up next. I've been analyzing the biological samples that Discovery managed to collect during the encounter. All of the hegemony species show signs of evolution on low-gravity worlds. Their bone density is much lower than humans, and their muscle development suggests they've never had to deal with heavy gravitational stress. What does that mean for us? President Carter asked. It means they're physically weaker than humans, Nash explained. Much weaker. If we could somehow force them into close combat situations, we might have a significant advantage. Admiral Taylor shook his head. That's all theoretical. They're not going to land troops and fight us hand to hand. They'll just bombard us from orbit until we surrender or die. Colonel Hayes stepped forward. Maybe not, sir. What if we make orbital bombardment too costly for them? What if we force them to come down and fight on our terms? How exactly would we do that? General Stone asked. By making it clear that we're not going to surrender no matter what they do to us, Hayes replied. If they want to conquer Earth instead of just destroying it, they'll have to come down and take it from us. Engineer Diane Foster, who had been quietly studying the alien ship designs, suddenly looked up. I think I see something. Their energy. Weapons are incredibly powerful, but look at their ship construction. Everything is designed for energy efficiency and long-range combat. There's no heavy armor plating, no kinetic weapon systems, nothing designed for close-range fighting. That makes sense, Rodriguez added. If you've been the dominant power for 3,000 years, you design your weapons to win quick, clean victories. You don't prepare for messy, destructive battles. President Carter leaned back in his chair. So you're suggesting we abandon our energy weapons and focus on kinetic systems? Basically fight them like it's still the 20th century? Exactly, Foster said excitedly. Bullets, missiles, ramming attacks, anything that relies on physical impact rather than energy. Their shields might be designed to stop energy weapons, but what about a chunk of metal moving at high speed? Major Chris Williams, Earth's top intelligence officer, activated his tablet and projected new information onto the display. I've been researching historical records of the hegemony's previous conquests. Every species they defeated was given the same 30-day ultimatum. Every species that surrendered was enslaved and their population dropped to zero within 50 years. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Taylor's face went pale. They don't keep slaves long-term. They work conquered species to death. Which means surrender isn't really an option, President Carter said quietly. Even if we wanted to give up, it would just be a slower form of extinction. Dr. Nash pulled up more biological data. There's something else. The hegemony. Species all show signs of genetic modification. They've been artificially enhanced for specific purposes, but humans show no signs of genetic tampering. We evolved naturally under Earth's harsh conditions. What difference does that make? General Stone asked. It means we're unpredictable, Nash explained. Every other species they've conquered was probably modified by the same precursor race that created the hegemony. They know how those species think and fight because they all follow similar patterns. But humans are different. Colonel, Hayes stood up straighter. We're not saying we can win a traditional war against them, but we might be able to make conquering Earth so costly and destructive that they decide we're not worth the effort. Foster nodded enthusiastically. We retrofit our entire fleet with kinetic weapons and heavy armor. We design our ships for ramming, attacks and mutual destruction rather than survival. We make every battle cost them more than they expected to pay. That's essentially a suicide strategy, Admiral Taylor pointed out. No, President Carter said slowly. It's a strategy that accepts casualties in exchange for making the enemy pay a price they're not prepared to pay. The hegemony has been winning clean victories for 3,000 years. They're not ready for an enemy that's willing to drag them into hell. Major Williams brought up tactical displays showing Earth's industrial capacity. We have 2 weeks to convert our manufacturing to war production. Every factory, every shipyard, everything focused on building kinetic weapons and armor plating. Rodriguez was already sketching designs on his tablet. We can mount railguns on civilian ships, turn cargo haulers into missile platforms, use mining charges as proximity explosives. What about ground defenses? Colonel Hayes asked. We turn Earth itself into a fortress, General Stone replied. Underground bunkers, surface-to-space weapons, anything that forces them to fight for every meter of ground. President Carter looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military and scientific leadership. He saw fear, but more importantly, he saw determination. Ladies and gentlemen, he said finally, it looks like we're going to war. The massive hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Admiral Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance as 2,000 alien ships arranged themselves in perfect formation. Each vessel pulsed with the same organic light he remembered from their first encounter, but now there were so many that they created an eerie glow across space. "My God," whispered Commander Lisa Harper from her position at the communication station. "There are so many of them." Jake nodded grimly while studying the tactical display. The human defense fleet consisted of 300 ships, every vessel Earth could scrape together in 2 weeks of frantic preparation. Cargo haulers had been fitted with railguns, mining ships carried experimental nuclear charges, and passenger liners now bristled with missile pods. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake broadcast to the fleet. "Remember the plan. We're not trying to win a clean victory here. We're trying to make them pay a price they don't want to pay." The response came quickly as Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the main screen. The alien commander looked exactly as arrogant as Jake remembered, his forearms spread wide in a gesture that probably meant superiority in his culture. "Humans of Earth," Kethvar announced, his voice carrying across all frequencies. "Your 30 days have expired. I offer you one final chance to surrender unconditionally. Submit to hegemony rule and your deaths will be quick and painless." Jake stepped forward. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Morrison. I have Earth's official response to your demand. Speak quickly, primitive. My patience grows thin." "Go to hell," Jake said simply. The alien admiral's expression shifted to something that might have been surprise. "You choose extinction over the honor of serving the hegemony? Your species is even more foolish than I calculated." "We choose freedom," Jake replied. "Something you apparently wouldn't understand." Kethvar made that same sound that might have been laughter. "Freedom? You speak of freedom while facing the combined might of 12 conquered species? Your 300 primitive vessels against my 2,000 warships? This will be over in minutes. Then let's get started," Jake said and cut the transmission. The first phase of the battle began in the asteroid belt where Commander Lisa Harper now led a squadron of converted mining ships. She had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment, using the asteroids as cover while launching kinetic bombardments at the approaching hegemony fleet. "All mining ships target the lead vessels and fire everything you have," Lisa ordered over the squadron frequency. The human ships opened fire with weapons that the hegemony had never encountered before. Railguns hurled solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds while missile pods launched warheads designed for mutual destruction rather than clean kills. The alien ship's energy shields, so effective against plasma weapons, offered little protection against chunks of metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed. 3 hegemony cruisers took direct hits and exploded in brilliant flashes. But the return fire was devastating. Energy beams cut through Lisa's squadron like a hot knife through butter. Within minutes, half her ships were gone. "All remaining units, ramming speed," Lisa commanded. "Let's show them what humans do when we're cornered." Admiral Kethvar watched from his flagship as the primitive human vessels charged directly at his battle line. This was unlike anything in his 3,000 years of military experience. Species that faced the hegemony either surrendered immediately or fought defensive actions while seeking escape routes. None had ever deliberately engaged in suicide attacks. "Admiral," called one of his subordinates, "the human vessels are not attempting to preserve themselves. They appear to be maximizing damage to our forces even at the cost of their own destruction." Kethvar studied the tactical display with growing confusion. A human destroyer had just rammed one of his heavy cruisers while detonating some kind of experimental weapon. Both ships were destroyed, but the human vessel was much smaller and cheaper to build. This was not an acceptable exchange ratio for a force that had maintained galactic dominance through overwhelming superiority. In the inner system, Lieutenant Ryan Brooks commanded a flotilla of retrofitted cargo ships, armed with everything Earth's weapons designers could imagine. Nuclear mines, kinetic kill vehicles, and experimental weapons that violated every principle of civilized warfare. "Remember, everyone," Ryan broadcast to his ships. "We're not trying to survive this. We're trying to make them hurt so badly they think twice about the next planet they want to conquer." His ships opened fire with a barrage that filled space with deadly projectiles. The hegemony vessels tried to respond with their energy weapons, but the human ships kept closing distance, forcing the aliens into the kind of close-range slugging match they had never been designed for. Ryan's own ship, the converted freighter New York, took a direct hit that vaporized most of the crew compartments. With his ship dying around him, Ryan aimed the remaining hull at the nearest hegemony battleship and engaged the emergency engines at maximum power. The impact sent shockwaves through both fleets. A human cargo ship had just destroyed a vessel 50 times its size, through nothing more than determination and explosive charges. Admiral Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. These humans fought like no species in recorded galactic history. They seemed to actively seek mutual destruction rather than avoiding it. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we have lost over 400 ships. The humans have lost 230 vessels, but they are achieving a much higher damage ratio than our projections indicated." Kethvar studied the numbers with growing alarm. At this rate, conquering Earth would cost him half his fleet. No planet was worth that kind of loss, especially when the humans showed no signs of seeking quarter or negotiating surrender. The battle reached Earth's orbit with both fleets bloodied and battered. Jake Morrison's flagship had taken severe damage, but he was still alive and still fighting. Around him, the space near Earth was filled with debris from ships of both sides. "Admiral Morrison," came a transmission from Captain Pete Collins on the damaged cruiser Boston. "We've lost contact with 60% of the fleet, but the aliens have lost almost a third of their ships. They're pulling back from close engagement." Jake nodded with grim satisfaction. The plan was working, but at a terrible cost. Earth's fleet was being destroyed, but they were making the hegemony pay a price that galactic conquerors had never been forced to pay before. As the space battle raged above Earth, Admiral Kethvar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of continuing the costly space engagement, he would land troops on the planet's surface and conquer Earth directly. It was a decision he would regret for the rest of his very short life. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the first wave of dropships descend toward Earth's surface. The space battle had cost him more ships than any single engagement in hegemony history, but landing ground forces would end this madness quickly. No species had ever resisted a hegemony ground invasion for more than a few hours. "Begin planetary assault," he ordered his fleet commanders. "Target major population centers. Once the humans see their cities burning, they will beg for mercy." General Patricia Stone watched the alien dropships descending through Earth's atmosphere from her command bunker, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment, turning Earth's natural advantages into weapons of war. "All ground units, this is General Stone," she broadcast to military forces around the globe. "The aliens are making the biggest mistake of their lives. They're coming down to fight us on our home ground." The first hegemony troops landed outside New York City, expecting to face primitive resistance with basic projectile weapons. What they found instead was Major Chris Williams and 200 human soldiers who had been waiting in prepared positions. The alien soldiers moved slowly and awkwardly in Earth's gravity, their movements sluggish compared to the quick, aggressive tactics of the human defenders. What should have been a quick victory turned into a bloody urban warfare nightmare as humans used every advantage their harsh homeworld had given them. "Contact left," shouted Sergeant Maria Santos, as she led her squad through the rubble of a destroyed building. 3 alien troopers moving slow. The human soldiers opened fire with kinetic weapons that punched through alien armor, designed to stop energy beams. The hegemony troops tried to return fire, but their energy weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not close quarters fighting in a dense urban environment. Within hours, it became clear that the aliens were struggling with more than just gravity. Dr. Helen Nash watched from her mobile laboratory as captured alien soldiers showed signs of severe biological distress. "They're getting sick," she reported to General Stone over the secure communication link. "Earth's bacterial environment is attacking their immune systems. They have no resistance to our microorganisms." Nash had spent the past 2 weeks developing biological weapons specifically designed to target alien physiology. Earth's aggressive, Bacterial and viral environment, which had shaped human evolution for millions of years, was proving to be humanity's secret weapon. Release the modified strains in sectors 7 through 12, Nash ordered her teams. Let's see how well their advanced medicine handles Earth germs. In the European theater, Colonel Ben Hayes led a combined force of military units and civilian volunteers against a major hegemony landing site. The aliens had expected to face organized military resistance, but instead found themselves fighting an entire population that refused to surrender. They don't understand human psychology, Hayes explained to his officers as they planned their next assault. They've conquered species that had central governments and organized surrender procedures, but humans don't work that way. Even if our government surrendered, half the population would keep fighting anyway. The truth of his words became clear as reports came in from around the globe. Farmers were using agricultural equipment as weapons, construction workers were building improvised fortifications, and even children were providing intelligence about alien movements. Earth's entire population had become a military force. Admiral Kethvar received increasingly desperate reports from his ground commanders. What should have been a simple occupation was turning into a planet-wide nightmare of guerrilla warfare and biological attacks. "Sir," reported his chief medical officer, "we have lost 30% of our ground forces to disease and combat injuries. The planet's bacterial environment is unlike anything in our medical databases." "Impossible," Kethvar replied. "Deploy our environmental protection systems." "We tried, sir. The humans are deliberately contaminating water supplies and air filtration systems. They are using their own planet's biology as a weapon against us." Engineer Diane Foster coordinated with resistance cells around the world from her hidden facility in the Australian outback. Earth's industrial capacity, instead of being captured by the invaders, had been converted into a distributed weapons manufacturing network. "Teams Alpha through Delta, we have new weapon designs ready for field testing," she broadcast on encrypted frequencies. "These kinetic penetrators are specifically designed to punch through alien armor at close range." The weapons she described were crude but effective. Human engineering, focused on reliability and stopping power rather than energy efficiency, was proving superior to alien technology in ground combat situations. Captain Jake Morrison, his ship destroyed in the orbital battle, now commanded ground forces in the Pacific region. He coordinated with resistance units across dozens of islands, using Earth's varied terrain to maximum advantage. "The aliens can't adapt to our environmental diversity," he reported to General Stone. "They're designed for controlled, sterile environments. Every climate zone on Earth is a different nightmare for them." The turning point came when Sergeant Santos led a raid on a hegemony command post in downtown Los Angeles. The assault revealed something that changed everything humans thought they knew about their enemies. "General Stone, you need to see this," Santos reported over her helmet camera. "The alien prisoners are talking. They say the hegemony isn't what we thought it was." The interrogation revealed that the 12 species of the hegemony were not natural allies. They were conquered peoples, genetically modified and controlled by artificial loyalty implants. The realization that they were fighting enslaved soldiers rather than willing conquerors spread through human forces like wildfire. Dr. Nash confirmed the biological evidence. "Every alien soldier we've captured shows signs of genetic modification and neural implants. They're not fighting for conquest. They're fighting because they've been programmed to fight." This revelation changed human tactics dramatically. Instead of simply killing alien soldiers, human forces began targeting the control systems that kept the hegemony species enslaved. Electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to disrupt alien technology became the new priority. Colonel Hayes led the first successful assault on a hegemony control station, using weapons specifically designed to disable rather than destroy. When the facility's control systems went offline, something unprecedented happened. The alien soldiers stopped fighting and began helping the humans. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar said as reports flooded in from across the planet. "No conquered species has ever turned against the hegemony." His tactical officer looked up from his console with fear in his alien eyes. "Sir, the humans have done something to our control networks. Species loyalty protocols are failing across multiple sectors. Kethavar realized with growing horror that the humans had not simply resisted conquest. They had discovered the secret that held the hegemony together and were systematically destroying it. For the first time in 3,000 years, conquered species were remembering what it meant to be free. As night fell over the burning cities of Earth, the tide of war was turning in ways that no one in the galaxy had thought possible. Admiral Kethavar paced across the bridge of his flagship as reports of failure came in from every front. His ground forces were in full retreat, his fleet had been reduced to less than half strength, and worst of all, the loyalty implants that controlled his conquered species were failing across the entire armada. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our own ships. The crews are requesting permission to join the human resistance." Kethavar felt something that no hegemony commander had ever experienced in 3,000 years of galactic dominance: complete strategic failure. The humans had not simply resisted conquest, they had exposed the fundamental weakness that held his entire civilization together. On Earth's surface, Captain Jake Morrison coordinated with resistance cells that now included former hegemony soldiers from 6 different species. The revelation that the aliens were enslaved rather than willing conquerors had changed everything about the war. "This is Captain Morrison to all human and allied forces," he broadcast from his mobile command post. "We've confirmed that the enemy ships are divided. Many crews have disabled their loyalty implants and are refusing to fight. Focus on disabling their command and control systems rather than destroying their ships." Engineer Diane Foster worked frantically in her underground laboratory to develop new electromagnetic pulse weapons designed specifically to target alien neural implants. She had discovered that human technology, crude and direct compared to alien systems, was perfectly suited for disrupting the delicate control mechanisms that kept the hegemony together. "The implants are designed to resist sophisticated attacks," she explained to Dr. Sam Rodriguez over their secure link. "But they can't handle simple electromagnetic interference. It's like using a sledgehammer to open a locked door instead of trying to pick the lock." In orbit above Earth, the remaining loyal hegemony ships prepared for a final desperate assault. Admiral Kethavar had decided that if he could not conquer Earth, he would destroy it completely. But his own fleet was turning against him as more species broke free from their artificial loyalty programming. Commander Lisa Harper, now leading a makeshift squadron of captured alien vessels alongside surviving human ships, received the final piece of the puzzle from Dr. Helen Nash's research team. "Lisa, you need to hear this." Nash's voice came through the communication system. "We've analyzed the genetic modifications in all the hegemony species. They weren't done by the species themselves. They're all the work of a single precursor, race that died out thousands of years ago." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked while maneuvering her captured alien cruiser into position for the final battle. "It means the entire hegemony is artificial," Nash explained. "The species that make up their empire were all conquered and modified by the same extinct race. The hegemony isn't a natural alliance, it's a control system left behind by dead conquerors." This revelation spread through the combined human and alien fleet like wildfire. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years realized they were all victims of the same ancient oppression. Admiral Kethavar watched his empire collapse around him as ship after ship declared independence from hegemony control. His own bridge crew, members of the original conquering species, began to question orders for the first time in their genetically modified lives. "Admiral," his tactical officer said hesitantly, "perhaps we should consider negotiating with the humans. They have offered amnesty to crews that surrender voluntarily." Kethavar's response was to activate his personal sidearm and eliminate his own officer. "The hegemony does not negotiate with primitives," he declared to his remaining loyal crew. "Prepare for orbital bombardment of the planet. If we cannot have Earth, no one will." The final battle began as Kethavar's remaining ships moved into position to destroy Earth's surface. But they found themselves facing not just human resistance, but a combined fleet of liberated species fighting for their first taste of freedom in millennia. Jake Morrison, now commanding the rebuilt UES Defiance with a mixed human and alien crew, led the final assault on Kethavar's flagship. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. with former slaves fighting alongside their liberators against the system that had oppressed them all. All ships concentrate fire on the flagship's command section, Jake ordered. We end this by taking out their leadership. The combined fleet opened fire with weapons that represented a fusion of human determination and alien technology. Railguns mounted on hegemony ships fired alongside traditional energy weapons, creating a devastating barrage that overwhelmed the flagship's defenses. Colonel Ben Hayes led a boarding action against Kethvar's ship, fighting alongside alien soldiers who had just discovered what it meant to choose their own battles. The close-quarters combat that followed was brief but decisive, as humans and liberated aliens worked together to capture the ship's control systems. Admiral Kethvar made his final stand on his own bridge, surrounded by the mixed force of humans and former slaves. His artificial arrogance finally cracked as he realized that his 3,000-year-old empire was crumbling around him. You cannot destroy the hegemony, he said desperately. Without us, the galaxy will fall into chaos. We brought order to countless worlds. Jake Morrison stepped forward, his face grim but determined. You brought slavery disguised as order, but that ends today. You primitive fool, Kethvar spat. You have no idea what forces you are unleashing. The galaxy needs the hegemony to maintain stability. The galaxy needs freedom to find its own stability, Jake replied. Something you never understood. The final transmission from Admiral Kethvar went out across the entire galaxy, broadcast on emergency frequencies by the liberated communication systems of his own fleet. But instead of a message of conquest, it was a confession of defeat. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Hegemony Fleet. His voice carried across space to 1,000 worlds. The humans have achieved the impossible. They have not only resisted our conquest but revealed the truth about our empire. We are not conquerors. We are the enslaved enforcers of a dead race's will. The transmission ended as Kethvar's ship was captured and his remaining fleet surrendered. For the first time in galactic history, the hegemony had been defeated not through superior technology or numbers, but through the simple human concept that freedom was worth any sacrifice. President Alex Carter's address to the galaxy was broadcast from Earth's rebuilt communication centers with representatives from 12 liberated species standing beside him. People of the galaxy, he began, today marks the end of an era of artificial control and the beginning of a new age of cooperation between free species. Humanity extends the hand of friendship to all who choose the difficult path of self-determination over the easy path of servitude. As human ships began carrying the message of liberation to worlds throughout the galaxy, the greatest truth of all became clear. The galaxy's most dangerous species had never been the hegemony at all. It had always been any species that refused to kneel, refused to surrender, and refused to accept that freedom was impossible. Today, that species was human.